computer. Okay, so we are recording. So thank you everyone for attending, and I'll keep trying to let others come in as they try to enter. And so we're going to start off with the first item, the proposed duplexes at 55th and T. And we have Mr. Tim Albiani here to speak. And Mr. Albiani, if you could take maybe 10 minutes or so, and if you wanted to divide that up with Mr. Kaufman, however you see fit, to let us know. And do you need to share a screen? Or
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, but it's up to you. We are, you know, everyone's seen the plans. They're actually not duplexes. They are new dwellings with ADUs. Both of them now have been downsized to actually a main dwelling with an ADU. And with that, I will pass it over to Jim Bob, who's my architect, who's been working, you know, is a very involved ESAC Elmhurst architect. So he's got a lot of experience in the city, and I will let him talk a little bit more about the project. And any questions you have for me as a, you know, as a longtime property owner in the area, I'd be glad to answer those later.
Okay, thanks, Tim. My name is Jim Bob Kaufman. I'm from Kaufman Architects here in Sacramento. And we primarily design housing, both single-family housing and projects like this, where it's a single-family house with an attached accessory dwelling unit. As you are probably aware, the state of California passed a law about a year and a half ago that allows residential lots that are zoned R1 to have an accessory dwelling unit attached to it, with the chance or the opportunity to sort of bend the rules a little bit on setbacks, density, things like that. And the idea behind that is that they're trying to increase the amount of housing for everyone in all places. And so the city of Sacramento has come up with a number of ordinances that address this, and those ordinances give us guidance on size of dwellings, setbacks, whether they're attached or detached, etc. And this project has been designed specifically according to those guidelines. We've worked with David Hung at length on trying to appease the neighborhood comments that have come up, as well as work with them on abiding by the city rules. And this is what we have now is two different buildings, one that faces 55th Street, one that faces T Street. They are essentially the same building, and they have been turned and flipped, except that the one that's on the corner of 55th and T Street has had some modifications for the entries and things like that to go along with the planning department rules. They are both two-story buildings. They are attached, which means that the accessory dwelling unit shares a wall with the single-family residence that it is next to. And there is a 20-foot, I think it's a 20-foot set, maybe it's a 10-foot setback or space between the two buildings if you were to look at them from T Street looking toward the buildings. Each of them have a garage. The idea of each of the four units have a garage, the idea being that parking space on the street is a premium, and we want to be able to utilize part of the lot for parking. And all of them have a side yard and a backyard. All of them function effectively as a single family residence. As I said, there are two stories. The materials that we're using are very consistent with the neighborhood. The slope of the roof is consistent. The window pattern is consistent. We are not trying to do a historical representation of a house, of some of the houses that are in Elmhurst, but we are trying to have it blend in and have it look like single family houses. Let's see. With that, I could open it up to questions unless Tim has something else to add.
No, I again, everybody is, I think, seen the renderings online, and they've been posted over a month now. And we're just, I walked the neighborhood back when it was a single family house with an ADU. and the lot on 55th and T Street, the 55th facing lot, was a duplex. And I handed out my phone number, and I talked in my email, and I talked to a number of people about what their any issues or concerns or requests they might have for the properties, and got a lot of very positive feedbacks, and some people, you know, that had some opinions of some changes, and we've incorporated a number of those items to, you know, obviously to be a good neighbor. You know, we've been with the property since one property since I believe 67, and the other property since 82. So, you know, it's obviously been a long-term hold for my family, and we're ready to really enhance the neighborhood on that corner, and we're very excited about the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Albiani and Mr. Kaufman. David Hung, did you want to add anything before we go to neighbor comments? I know there's a number of neighbors that want to comment.
Not at this time. I'm just here to kind of observe and take notes.
Okay.
If you have any questions for me, feel free.
Great.
I'll try to answer.
Okay, so can I ask the neighbors that want to comment, can you raise your hand and then I'll get to you? And then I know, so Justin, can you go ahead and you start us off? And then I'll go with the raised hands as I see them. And if you can kind of keep your comments brief or questions.
Yeah, we'll be succinct. Or I'll be succinct. I can't speak for anybody else. Thanks, Jim Bob. Thanks, Tim, for coming out and being in the meeting. Agreed that these renderings have been up there. You said a few things in your statements, though, I think that are a bit contradictory. One is that you're going to bend the rules a bit, and two is that you're going to be a good neighbor, and three is that you feel that this building is adding value to the neighborhood. For my part, I'd like to see you guys get to a design that doesn't require a deviation. But if you are asking for a deviation, I'd be interested in hearing what sort of a value you think you're providing to the neighborhood that justifies such a deviation. I would like to sit down and chat with you guys about the design. I hear your statements of many people having positive impacts or positive impressions of this particular design. I haven't run across any. Trying to reserve judgment, but in terms of looking at the design, in terms of looking at the design guidelines, and in terms of looking at the legal standard that has to be met in terms of section 1808 180B, which essentially says if you get a deviation from the design guidelines, it has to be in keeping with the purpose and the intent of the design guidelines. I know that you got the email that I sent over to David Hung. You did address some of those things moderately, but you still need deviations, and you're still outside the spirit of the design guidelines. So I would like to sit down with you, and I would like to work towards a design that doesn't need deviations. I know that the city is willing to facilitate that and make it happen. I would hope that we could get to something that is a win-win-win. A win for you, a win for the people around you, and a win for the neighborhood in general. But yeah, there's a whole laundry list of design elements that don't make the design guidelines.
Thanks, Justin. Okay, Rick, you have your hand up. You want us?
I was just curious. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I was just curious what's going to be the selling price of each house with the ADU attached.
We're not selling. I'm sorry. We've owned those properties for 50 years,
Oh,
and
they're
we
all-
intend
they're
on
all-
holding them. Yeah, I'm sorry. My children are probably moving into them. So my daughter's graduating from Cal this year, and she was going to be hopefully moving into one of them. And my son is an engineering student at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and if he chooses to relocate back to Sacramento, he would then be, and they will ultimately be owners of those individual units as they're part of our trust, and they're going to be owned individually by my two children at one day. So this is ultimately, they're going to be owners and dwellers. So we have no intention of selling. I'm sorry if that was again, in my letter I put out, it was always about long-term hold like we've had on that property.
Okay. Then
Well, if that's a misunderstanding, I'm sorry. No, we have no intention of selling those properties.
probably my misunderstanding too.
Okay.
how much will the ADUs then be rented for?
Oh, what market rate?
Okay,
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, we have no idea. We're not some corporation. We're just a husband and wife that, have owned those properties for a long period of time. We're going to, put them on at market rate. I assume $1,900. A 2-bedroom, 1-bath that's about $2,000, I assume. We'll have to play the market when it comes in, but they'll be brand new, nicely appointed units. And our intent is to, like we've done with the small house that's there, is have it be a occupied space. The current tenants have been there for, I think, 15 or 16 years. So again, we are very long-term landlords. I think we're considered very good landlords. We have very few properties, but most people that stay have been in our few number of properties for, gosh, some of which here, Linda's, for example, has been there for more than 14 years. So it's all about really enhancing, truthfully, about making nice homes for people. And that's what we're just a husband and a wife. That's all we are. Nothing fancy.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Good. So Evelyn, I know you wanted to raise your hand. So.
Sure. I apologize. I'm not as technologically savvy as I could be. So let me start by saying, Mr. Albiani, I did have a conversation with Mr. Hung. I have looked at your revised plans. I am in agreement with much of what Justin said on the global. As the neighbor, if you will, that's directly impacted by your plans, I can appreciate that you've made some changes to address the concerns that are individually based to me and to the property that's directly adjacent to me. I've said this to Mr. Hung. I just want to say it to you directly. I appreciate that. That being said, I have ongoing concerns with the modifications around, personally, my privacy concerns with the windows and the modifications that were made. They don't address all of my concerns. I think we can get there. I don't think that the modifications that have been made address those concerns as of now. And I stand with, other neighbors that share other concerns in terms of how it impacts the neighborhood. So I just want to put out there that I do appreciate the efforts that are being made. You and I had direct conversations early on when you put notices at our homes. I will say it was a challenged conversation. I think we've come far. I think there's some ways to go. And my concerns remain. And I'm hoping that as we sit down as a group, we can get there. But the way that the drawings currently stand, there's still ongoing issues for me with the property that's directly adjacent to my home. And I am a property owner and a landlord, both in Elmhurst and outside of Elmhurst. So I can appreciate what you're attempting to accomplish for you and your family. So I don't want to take that away from you. But that being said, you have to balance the rights of people that live next to the property along with your overall goal of enhancing the neighborhood and building some what I would consider ongoing assets for your children and your family.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Evelyn. So I don't see any other hands up. Does anybody else want to make a comment?
Well, I would, but I can't put my hand up because I don't see my picture.
I don't see it either. Okay. Who is this speaking? I can't
Sorry,
see.
it's Rick Hamilton. Hi.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, go for it, Rick.
Okay, so my main concern, well, first of all, Mr. Albiani, there we are. Hang on a second, I'll get it better. Thank you. So thanks, Mr. Albiani, for your letter and for your posting and everything like that. First of all, the parcel numbers are not correct. I'm not sure how you managed to get them both wrong, but neither parcel number is correct in the letter that you sent. Second of all, it's not really all that well groomed. You maybe gave the impression with the letter that you've had a gardener over there. There are at least a dozen pieces of trash over there right now in that lot. It's been pretty well neglected for a long time. One of the fences does look good. The other fence is a complete wipeout. But my overall concern is really having so many people where there are only two now, 2 duplexes and additional dwelling units. It looks
No,
like
no,
a
sir, there's not 2 duplexes and additional dwelling units.
Point of
There's
order.
2
Could we
houses
now let people
and an
finish?
additional dwelling unit. I'm sorry.
Mr. Albion, can he just finish and then you can respond?
Okay, I'm sorry. It just said 2 duplexes and additional dwelling units, and that's not what we're trying to achieve here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
Great.
okay. That's all right.
He might have come up late.
No problem.
But anyway.
Well, yeah, I noticed that you didn't call them both duplexes. One is called a duplex and with the other is called something else. But if we look at the building, the plans that you submitted, there, I don't know what else to call it. It looks pretty much like 2 duplexes to me. And I think anybody driving down the street would say that's a duplex and that's a duplex. But whatever you want to call them, the density is going way, way up. And if it were people, that were going to live there and build there and live there, that's a nice thing. But having absentee landlords is not the best thing. I, again, am an absentee landlord. I have another piece of property too, so I'm not totally against it. But the density of people and the massing of these structures is what really kind of got to me. I don't know if you can see out my window, but I can look, well, if you could see out that window, that's where the lot is. So I'm affected in the way that I'm going to be by there every single day, or I'm going to look out my front yard and I'll be looking at these buildings. So it looks like a lot of building, two huge, two-story structures, where today there's one kind of nice little house. That's a big change for me, and I guess I'm resistant to change in general. But I have concerns about the massing of the places. I don't think that an independent or impartial observer would conclude that the massing of these places is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. I know Evelyn has a 2-story right next door, and you mentioned that there are other duplexes in the neighborhood, and further down T Street, there are some 2 stories, but the other duplexes on T Street are all 1 story. So I guess that's my spiel. That's my concern.
Thanks, Rick. Catherine, did you want to say something?
Similarly to what, we're dealing with and just down here on S Street, but my main concern is, like the architecture, that it fits the neighborhood, the
Right.
density is concerning me. Yeah, the deviations that are requested, why do you need deviations? Why can't you fit within the lines? It's a big property that I can see that can fit, and meet the requirements that are set by the city. And why do we need the deviations?
That's a
So
good question. Mr. Albion,
Like
what Justin
you do
was
realize-
saying.
Wait.
Are you done? No, that's fine. If you guys want to keep talking,
No,
go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make sure somebody, go ahead, Mr. Albiani. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I sounded like, I'm just a little confused on a statement here. I'm struggling with the idea that you guys are talking about this massing issue. If it was a single dwelling with a 3-car garage and a 2-story house of much larger square footage than I'm proposing here, I would meet all the requirements and I could put 2 massive homes on those 2 properties. Massive. And meet all the county requirements.
City.
I'm just trying to understand what is and I'm next to duplexes. I'm across the street and down from duplexes. The property behind me, there's a house between me and a duplex. I'm struggling, and none of them are conforming. I mean, really, truthfully, they're all on odd lots, including Evelyn's. You know, the feedback I've gotten, including from Evelyn, was that people thought that was a city-owned lot and that it would never be built on. And Evelyn bought her property 7 years ago, and this was the contention.
9.
She was, or 9, okay?
9.
And she told me she was an attorney, and she told me that she was informed that that was a city-owned lot. And it's since 1982, it's been in my family, and the lot next to it since 1967 has been in my family. So I kind of, and she was disappointed to know that someone could build on that lot. That to me, and she was upset over the fact that she has coffee and looks out into an open field, and that's what she told me that she was uncomfortable about. And Evelyn, I'm sorry, let me finish. And that she would be looking into the site of a house. Well, if that were a large home, 5 feet off the property line, it would be the same situation. I told her I designed the house around there not being windows looking into that part. We made some modifications to pick those things up. But I'm also standing here being told that people like that to have a little tiny house and a vacant lot. I'm standing here saying I could put a much larger home on that property and would meet all the requirements you're looking for. The deviations we're looking for is to try to enhance this property to match some of the duplexes that are next door, to enliven that corner a bit. One of the challenges is somebody back the city put a bus stop on that corner. So I can't have, the deviation is not having an access on the corner for the, when you have a corner lot and you put 2 dwellings on it, you typically want to have the driveways or the garages on 2 different corners. As an ADU, you don't need that. But I'm just struggling a little bit with the massing issue, because if it was a single family home, there would be no issue here. And that's what we've listened, we've discussed, we've modified. We've went through this with the city. We've discussed the solutions. I've heard all your comments. We've done a significant amount of revisions to this point. I'm just looking for some, and then to be told that there were no positive feedback was really a disappointing statement, because actually I've heard a number, and I'm going to say number as in the term of 4 or 5 phone calls and emails, giving very positive feedback, looking forward to that, what is a vacant lot being activated and no longer something that my gardeners, who do show up every other week and clean it up, have to pick up the garbage and the trash that continually gets put onto that corner. So I'm sitting here telling you it's time to activate that lot and make it a lot nicer. And I'm hoping to do that in a way that works with the rest of the community.
Okay, thank you. We do have some more. We only have a few more minutes and we have more people. So I think you do want to hear some more comments from neighbors. We had Manuel, can you go ahead and go? And then Justin and Evelyn want to follow up. Be brief as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be quick. So I just want to, and I apologize if you already answered this, Mr. Albiani. Can you please just quickly go over the deviations again and explain why the necessity for them? Because that's what I'm trying to understand.
Sure, I'll transfer that to the architects.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd be happy to field that question. So there was a comment about these being large properties, and that's actually not true at all. The square footage on these properties is very close to what the minimum is allowed by the city, and in their current form, they're almost square, and most city lots in that area are narrow and long, and so that gives you the opportunity to push the building back away from the street. In this case, we don't have any space to push the building back and still provide any kind of backyard for the people that live there, and stay with and not go into the rear setbacks. So the deviation that you asked about is there are 2 actually. One is to have the garage, the face of the garage, be forward of the main wall of the building, which is where, in this case, where the front door is. What we've done though to mitigate that is to have the porches come forward so that the garage walls are not big looming vertical surfaces. And then the second deviation is to the front bulk control plane. And basically what that says is that the second story can't come forward of the first story, very simplistically. And so we're asking for basically the eave and the overhang of the second story to come forward of that so that we can provide an overhang on the upper roof and not have it cut off and look funny, you know, from the street. So those are actually the only two deviations. Everything else about the design complies with the city standards.
Did you have other questions, Madeline?
I guess I'd follow up if you can answer this. Are there any other structures in Elmhurst that have these current deviations?
I actually don't know the answer to that. That would be a better question for David. And that's not something that we're asked to provide information on.
Thank you, honey. Okay.
Do you want me to answer?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so this is David Hung, and I don't have an answer right now. I don't have a list of other deviations of properties,
Okay.
so I have to research that. I'm sorry.
I can tell you that the property directly adjacent is only 18 feet off the property line, which is, we're going to be 20 feet.
Oh,
And
I forget they're there.
the
Yeah.
park,
Okay, hold on one second. We've got somebody
Okay.
talking. Can somebody mute themselves?
Peggy,
And
Peggy,
then,
would you mind muting?
okay. And then actually, if we could that'd be great if we could get that information from you, Mr. Hung. And then Justin, can you go ahead? We only have a couple more minutes because we have.
Yeah, I don't want to break into Don's time too much, but honestly, I think what you're seeing is a fair amount of resistance from the neighborhood, Tim. And I know that this is something that you don't think should be, and it seems like you're fairly frustrated with it. And what I'm trying to bring forward here, and speaking with others in the neighborhood, is a willingness to sit down and try and get you to a design that doesn't require a deviation. One where you don't even have to deal with this. You can just go ahead and do it on your own. Or to something that is more of a win-win situation. There are a lot of different options. I think you probably explored some of them. You have an architect who is very well renowned. You could unify the lots. You could actually have it as a duplex with 2 ADUs. There are a whole bunch of different options that don't land us in the territory of strife and conflict. Both the planning department and our councilman's office are willing to sit down and mediate and have the discussion. Are you willing to have that discussion?
Thank you. And actually, do you want an answer?
I do.
Okay, all right. Okay, and then Evelyn, you're next, and then we need to move on. I think
Whenever you're ready.
I need you to unmute.
You're muted.
Fabiani.
I'm sorry, I'll answer for Tim. I'm not sure he realizes that the question is to him. We're certainly willing to sit down and talk to you, but the two deviations that we're asking for are fairly minor things that are really not going to change the massing of the building. So yeah, we'd be happy to sit down and talk with you sometime before, and maybe if you could email us with your questions, then we can come back to you with the information that you're asking for and not have a long drawn out conversation.
Yeah, I think what we'd like to have is we can't do face-to-face now, but at least a video conference where we can go back and through. And if you want to do it by email first, so we can get the facts out on the table, I think that makes sense. So I appreciate your willingness to entertain that. Is that something that you're in agreement with, Tim?
You're muted.
But you can nod or shake your head.
Yeah.
No, I am, we're open to try to make this, I'm, you know, it's funny because we were ready for this meeting a month ago, and I would have loved to have this conversation during the last month. And I know we tried to, you know, Justin, I didn't know that you were looking to set up a meeting over the last month. we would just like to do this somewhat timely. We've been waiting on the Elmhurst group, and to the relationship of me being frustrated. It's the fact that I feel like I've been told that we didn't get positive feedback, which is it's as if hold on, ma'am. This is really important. I think I feel like we have this huge number of people in the neighborhood that are upset, but I can only get 5 or 6 that are true neighbors to this property on a meeting that we're talking about this. So, you know, I'm feeling a little blindsided here, and I'm glad to sit with you. But if it's about, again, your opinions, that's fine. But we also have, you know, I'm looking to deliver something that is within the realms of what's acceptable to the city of Sacramento and to be an asset to the community. And I'm really struggling with I really wanted this to stay a lot, or I really like the little house. When people remodeled their houses in the neighborhoods over the last 40 years, they didn't go through this process. They just went and did it. I'm glad we have these reviews, but please understand, I'm doing the best I can to give you something that is not massive, that it does not fill the lot, that does not change the integrity of an area that has no duplexes. I'm trying to actually enhance what's going on here. And this has been a bit frustrating to me because there hasn't been, the little bit of feedback I get is through some emails through Mr. Hung, and nothing short of your email was very involved. Handed to my architect, said, can you solve this for me? Other than that, it was really opinions on colors and or I don't like it, or wow, I think it's going to be a great asset to see that corner finally enlivened and made better. But that's where I'm standing with a little bit of frustration, is I really do want this to be an asset, and I do want to really make that a nice environment. And you know, I just feel like I'm dealing with a lot of people who have moved in the neighborhood since it's been that way and have improved their homes and made them larger. You know, it's a good opportunity to make something better than what it is today. And I'll leave it at that.
One moment.
Okay, and then is it going to be a follow-up meeting?
Yeah, I appreciate your willingness to work. I hear your frustration. I think it's difficult because I have different concerns than other neighbors have, and they have different concerns, certainly, than the people you've heard support. I think there are many of us that are in similar positions to you. Myself and at least 2 other people on this Zoom are both longtime residents and landlords, and trying to balance the ethical issues that come with that. I think we can get there. I appreciate your willingness to try. I understand your frustration, and I think that we can work with your architect and with the community to get something that works. And it will certainly be a faster process than the other. So I appreciate your willingness to commit to it.
Okay, hope you all can do that. And Evelyn, you wanted to say one more comment quickly, and then we need to move on.
I do. So I want to say 2 things, and I'll try to keep it short because I know I only got 20 seconds. So Mr. Albiani, just for points of clarification, I have no issue with you developing that lot. What I have an issue with are the windows that you're putting on the side of the house that go into my backyard. So that is my issue. I want to be clear in front of everybody what my issues are. I don't want people looking into my yard. I don't care if you develop. I get to talk. I get to talk now. I don't care that you develop that lot. You get to do whatever you want with your property. If you do it consistently with what the neighborhood wants, that's a different conversation. I am more than happy to sit down at the table with everybody else that's willing to talk to you and have a conversation about what's viable. Okay, so I don't want people thinking like it's about a cup of coffee and having a cup of coffee outside of my window. So, and if you have supporters, I would love to hear who those are, because when we spoke, you told me nobody within 300 feet had problems but myself. So please bring those people to the table, because I really want to know who they are. I'm the only property within 300 feet that's directly impacted by what you're doing. So if you're going to make a statement like that, I need you to back it up with the statements that are being made to you that are positive in nature. I certainly don't want to discount those, but I don't know who those are.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna end this now, and Justin and Evelyn and Mr. Albiani and Mr. Kaufman and maybe even David Young all get together in a meeting. Perhaps that'd be great. So it looks like there's some follow-up that's going to happen, and appreciate everybody's input here and for coming. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda because we
Thanks, you
have a
guys.
guest with us. Mr. Petra, well, I'm going to call you Dan. Can I? I'm just going to call you Dan. Thank you for coming. And Kat, would you go ahead and introduce Dan to us? Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I've asked Dan Petrocchi, right? Did I get that right? Yeah. To come talk and give the update for the S Street townhomes, the vacant lot on S between 37th and 39th. You know, it was well, the GO is already built, so it's the empty lot that's running parallel to 50. So I'll let Dan update us.
Okay, well, let me cover the GO just for a minute because there's also something that's important that we've talked about with the community. The GO now, this changes, but if all applications are approved, we're going to be about 91% leased. It's been a struggle through COVID, but now things have opened up. We seem to be leasing up. We have 4,000 feet of retail on the ground floor. And our object there was to get something, Justin recalls, I know Kat recalls back from 6-7 years ago. We've been trying to get something like, if you remember David Berkeley's, or like Sellens. We have been through Sellens, Bella Brew, Meet and Eat, Leroy's, and have struck out literally every place. I now have a French baker that will maybe take half the space. Real good operator, well capitalized. It's going to be expensive for us to get her in, but I think the neighborhood would be great for the neighborhood. I've been willing to put a lot of money into this space for a long time. Don't have anybody. Also followed One Speed, 33rd Street. Anyway, I've been through them all, but I'm striking out. These guys will take half the space. So the alternative there, this is all like letting you know what we're thinking about, which is how I've handled this project since the beginning. I don't know if I'm going to do any of the following things. I'm telling you what I'm thinking about. If we do that, we'll take the 2,000 feet and turn it into apartments. Unless we can find somebody else, and we're looking like crazy. I have the best retail agent in Northern California working the property, and he's been totally unsuccessful for the last 4 years. So moving over to the 41 approved townhomes. The interest that I've had was for this space has been production builders, which is what we specifically don't want. The two people that I'd like to work on the property, Mike Paris, who did the property downtown with the old Crystal product, and he's got a great farmhouse product up in Folsom. Anyway, builds quality stuff. And Tim Lewis, who builds quality at the old Sutter Hospital, Sutter Memorial. I'm striking out with both those guys, by the way, too. But so trying with a developer in Los Angeles to see if I can get him to come up here. If I can't get that, with the alternatives for the property, and this is a ways out, guys, so I'm just telling you what I'm thinking. I'll certainly do a formal warning even before I go to the city, even for preliminary talks. The only thing else I can think of is we have 41 units, 3 bedrooms. That's 123 beds that are be across the street. I might look at doing 90 to 100 unit apartment complex with podium parking on the freeway. No more low across the street from the houses where Kat lives. Kat will be having significant discussions if we go forward. You'll have a lot of input. And I've but even thinking through that, I'm concerned about if we can get where the entrances and exits would be. And right now there's 4 or 5, and I don't want more than one that would come out directly in the neighborhood. The other one would come out where the apartments are. So I don't know if any of that works. I don't know if we're going to do this, but as soon as we bought the lot, we talked about what we were going to do on the lot way before we planned it and did it. We just talked to the neighbors. We started talking to Elmhurst, the president of Elmhurst, the day after I signed the escrow on the property, way before we closed, a year and a half. So I'll be that forthright with you guys coming up in the future with what these plans are. I feel I'm very disappointed in my own performance and not being able to deliver something like a Sellens to that 4,000 feet. But we've thrown percentage only rents. We've agreed to put all the TIs in, and we've just simply struck out. The restaurants that are moving, 33rd, and if One Speed moves in the end, they're moving to restaurants that have gone under during COVID because all of the restaurant equipment is in place, so they don't have any capital costs. Anyhow, that's my update. Happy to answer any questions. And know before I do any of this stuff, I'll be back to you first to tell you that I'm going to the city. As always, I don't sneak up on people. Any questions at all?
Thank you,
I
Dan.
just want to throw out that I appreciate all the communication, and it's a pleasant contrast to other experiences. So thank you for doing that.
Oh yeah, no problem. You know, I absolutely, Elmhurst has been great to me. I've had 100% support everything we've done. Not that we haven't had negative comments, we certainly have, but we've solved them one way or another. And we have really good support at the city because obviously they're interested in housing. But this is about neighborhood, and I recognize that. Hi, Maggie.
Hi. We've been on another meeting, sorry.
That's okay. All right, well, my time's up. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, it looks like, go ahead, Manuel, do you have a question? Otherwise, we need to probably move to our.
I have a quick question. For the apartments that are being built, are there plans for affordable units there? What is the breakdown of the market rate that you're thinking for that?
I'm sorry. What I talked about is something we might do in the future. What we have planned and still want to do is 41 townhomes for sale. So what I said is it will be the alternative if I can't find the right builder. I want somebody that's going to look like it's custom across the street and not production built. It just won't work. It seems to work fine economically, but it won't work otherwise. And that does, you know, the benefit is that it provides lower cost housing, but it takes the neighborhood down. So there. Okay. Anyhow, does that answer your question? And
thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Rick, sorry.
I had a question. Dan, this is regarding the Geo property, the retail. Yeah. Have you ever heard of a kind of a small boutique grocery chain in the Bay Area called Molly Brown?
No. I chased Molly Brown. Yeah. Do you have any sense of what the size is?
Well, my friend in San Francisco lives near the smallest one, and it's an old, have you ever heard of the Cala markets in San Francisco?
Those are usually they're small markets, but they're more like the size of Taylor's, 12 to 15,000 feet.
Couldn't tell from.
Yeah, because I was excited when somebody said they were going to do a small Rayleigh's, had the smaller concept they put on our street, but that's 12,000 feet. So it's 3 times the size of mine.
Okay.
We were really on to Bellabrew for a while, and then they're a major baker. And instead of continuing with negotiations on our place, and they were excited about it, they wound up buying a commercial baker shop in West Sacramento went in a different direction.
So I think we're gonna have to wrap up. Thank you very much, Dan, and I'll get the notes, but I'm sorry, I had to be on this other meeting. Thank
That's
you.
okay.
It's recorded. Okay, great. Thank you again for coming.
Thanks,
Sure.
Dan.
And your assistant did really well.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right, goodbye.
Okay, so now we're going to go to Cameron for our parks presentation, and Brianna, I think. It looks like we got a few people here. So let me just, I don't see, oh, okay, there you are. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and introduce, you need to unmute Cameron and, oops, asked to unmute. Let's see, I'm not.
Hi, I'm here.
There you go. Okay, great. Okay.
My name is Cameron Granis, and I'm a parks planning intern with the Department of Youth Parks and Community Enrichment. And Brianna is going to be leading the presentation today on the Parks Master Plan.
And will I be able to share my screen? I have some PowerPoint slides.
Yeah, and I just want to know, you guys have 15 minutes, and that would include questions. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll try to speed through this.
There you go. Oh, she's doing it.
So I'm loading up my slides now. So my name is Brianna Moland. I am a park planner with the Department of Youth Parks and Community Enrichment, and I'm here to talk about the Parks Master Plan. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. So we've been holding these community connection meetings. And the purpose of these meetings is to identify and discuss the unique needs of residents and underserved groups. So I'll be talking about the Parks Master Plan, and then I have some interactive polling questions and then a discussion section after that. So the Parks Master Plan is going to identify the community's vision and priorities for youth development, recreation and community enrichment, parks, and park-related facilities. And it's going to guide the city's effort to manage and enhance parks, recreation facilities, trails, programs, events, and other related services over the next 20 years. And it's actually replacing our current master plan, which was last updated in 2009. So this is our planning process. Currently, we're at task number 3, which is public involvement and survey. So we're taking all the feedback from meetings like this, and that's going to be fed into our needs assessment. So it'll help us set some priorities and recommendations moving forward in terms of parks and recreation for Sacramento. So we have 3 core services. Our Parks Division, which is where I work. We have over 4,000 acres of parkland, and we have a mix of different size parks and parkways, and we have tons of different amenities like soccer fields and play structures. And then our Youth Division focuses on the development and enrichment of children, youth, and young adults, and that's up to age 24. We have after-school activities like hotspots on Friday night, and we have leadership and employment programs such as Sacramento Youth Commission, Summer at City Hall, Primetime Teen, and Young Leaders of Tomorrow. And then our Community Enrichment Division is all about recreation programming and activities for all ages and abilities. We have support services for older adults, and then we have different community events and celebrations, as well as Camp Sacramento and some access leisure programs for people with different abilities. So this is a map of Sacramento, and all of the green dots on this map are parks that we manage. But the problem is not all of these areas are served equally or equitably, which is why we want to get some feedback from the community to hear what we should be addressing in the Parks Master Plan moving forward. So this is just a list of some of our programs and services. We're going to be evaluating these as part of the Parks Master Plan process. So I have a poll that I want to do with you guys. I'm going to put the link for the poll in the chat box, and it's really quick. It's 5 questions long. And I'll go through the questions with you together. This is also a QR code. If you wanted to scan your phone, you'd be able to do that right now if you want to do that quickly. And then I'm going to move on. Okay, so the first question is, how long have you lived in Sacramento? What's the most pressing or critical issue for the future of parks and recreation in the city of Sacramento? On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate the quality of parks and recreation in Sacramento? What's your age range? What's your race or ethnicity? And that's actually the last question. And we just do that so we can track who we're talking to during each of these meetings. So for the discussion part, we have two questions for you, and I'll open it up to you guys. Oops. So the first one is, how do parks and recreation programs impact your community group or your organization? Do you have any stories that you can share with us? And then what are the key needs for you and for your group?
And I just want to interject here. I think that the two questions I posed to Cameron were whether there are any changes proposed to the one park that we have, or park and a half, I guess, the Coloma Center and the T Street Median. And then the other question really did relate to, and I think it's part of some of the general plan discussion that we've had, is, you know, how are underserved areas being addressed? So maybe you can address those two questions, and people can also put their hand up for other questions.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard of any new development plans for this area of the city. So I don't think there are any plans for parks in your area right now. But we can certainly talk about what kind of changes you would like to see. That's actually the information we're trying to get. In terms of underserved groups, we've actually been doing kind of like networking with our council members and our park commissioners to see which areas of the city they think we should out to for these community connection meetings. So far we've done like 25 of these meetings, and we're just hopping on existing Zoom calls like I'm doing right now and just asking for input. So that's what we want to do tonight. So if there's any questions or comments.
I guess you can put your hands up. I don't see, oh, Rick has his hand raised. Go ahead, Rick. You're muted though. You gotta unmute.
Okay. Hi, I have a stepson who's developmentally disabled, and I want to say that Access Leisure is a wonderful program. I commend the City Parks and Rec for having that program, and it's a godsend. So thank you.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Other questions? We appreciate you guys taking the time. I guess one thing, I did do the survey and it didn't seem like you could make comment. I don't know, maybe I didn't do enough of the survey, but it seemed like I didn't see a place where one could make comments about parks. It was just, and the question seemed kind of abbreviated to me, but maybe there's more detail asked for it in it. Can you actually make?
So we actually did.
Go ahead.
Are you talking about the poll that we just did?
Yeah.
Okay. So before we started going around with this poll, we actually had a community-wide survey that was very detailed, and it took like 15-20 minutes to do. And people actually complained that it was kind of too long. So for this next round of outreach, we're trying to simplify things so that we could really just narrow down what are the needs for parks in Sacramento. So we'll be able to tally everything up when we finish.
Great. Any other questions? Again, we really appreciate your guys coming. Do you have questions? No questions? Okay. I guess, oops, I am. One last question I had, and I think I asked Cameron this too, was with the increased densities that the city is proposing in, you know, all the single family neighborhoods, is parks going to do anything different with neighborhood parks that are likely to experience higher levels of use if that happens?
I think the Parks Master Plan will hopefully help us figure this out. We're going to have to work with the general plan team to see what type of policies we're going to have to implement when that starts happening. So that's definitely something we can take down in our notes and make sure we're thinking about as we move forward.
Yeah, because I think you can see in some of these parks where, especially ones that are grass, where, you know, the grass gets trampled, and the more, obviously you've got more people coming out and using the parks now, right? Because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I've seen that in some of, I mean, our parks are very small, but Tahoe Park and East Portal Park, I think, are both have impacts from that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I again really appreciate you guys coming. And do you have, can you put something in the chat if we want to get a hold of you, or people do have questions afterwards?
Yeah, I'll put my email address in the chat
That'd be
box.
great, yeah. And I also appreciate your flexibility. I know we changed the time around and you guys were very, very flexible for that. So great. So we've got Brianna's. So Brianna, you would be the one to contact if we have more follow-up questions.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. Okay,
Great.
thank you, guys.
So much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, so we're gonna go now to our,
And I think we're gonna end the recording now. Is that okay?
sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna end this now.
Okay, can we get everybody in the picture?